Hey guys,
Hey, how you going, Cillian?
how are you doing?
Good.
Yeah, surviving.
You're joining at the right time of the day when their muscles are starting to burn and they need a bit of motivation.
Oh yeah, how are you getting on, guys?
Good, Cillian. I must say, those fans that you provided us with yesterday, they're a big help.
Oh yeah, I can see them there.
Yeah.
Not for overheating, but overall, actually doing quite well. I think as you warned us already yesterday, like we'll start the heart rate with, let's say, like easy zone 1 with a certain power, and now I'm almost 11 hours in. I can see that my heart rate jumped at least 20 to 25 heartbeats in the same or even lower power zone.
Yeah, you can
So yeah, thanks for the tips.
What, how many meters climbing have you got done now?
I'm at 5,500, and Zach is beating my ass. He's at 58. This lightweight.
He's up the road. He's up the road.
Yes, I'm coming for it.
much. Yeah, gravity's not as against me as it is with Jim.
And how are the legs feeling?
Legs are fine. I feel like there's a lot of lactic acid on the top of the quads, but calves are fine. Hamstrings are fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I've been trying to roll it out, but our break seems to get shorter and shorter, even though it actually isn't. So I don't know what you would recommend for that.
More importantly, not only how your legs are, how's your arse?
That's the real question.
That is, Zach, you want to comment on that one?
Yeah, I reckon I've got. I reckon I'm bleeding, to be honest. Seriously, no. It's not a good time back there, and it's all pretty numb.
It's pretty
Committed to the cause.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Cillian, I'll jump in here just to say thanks so much for joining us. I think you can actually lead most of the conversation considering your background. I'm very curious to just see some of the questions that you'll ask Zach and Jim at this time of their ride. But maybe if you could give a bit of an introduction to yourself and some of the work that you do.
Yeah, so my name's Cillian. I'm based in Dublin, and essentially I owner of What's Up Studio and Coaching. We run a triathlon coaching business, and we've got a watt bike studio. But obviously with the current situation with COVID-19, things have changed and studios have been closed down. And as challenging as a time it is, it's actually been an opportunity to learn. Say for myself, I've definitely had to learn to adapt the business structure and learn to come online more. And actually it's interesting seeing Jim and Zach and looking at their pictures from this morning as well, seeing that the setup that they had and the connectivity and the amount of things they've got hooked up technologically wise. I think like I'm not technologically gifted, and it's definitely things I'm learning to work on. So it's pretty impressive to see the amount of screens and the amount of things they've been connected up to this morning. But yeah, so as like for my own kind of background, from a sporting background, I come from a GAA background. So for those who don't know, hurling would be my sport. So the Irish sport with the stick and ball. Physical team game. That was my background growing up playing that up until the age of maybe like 21. Since I was like the age of 8, I kind of grew up playing that sport, and then just wanted to do something different. When I lost enjoyment of something, I wanted to change it up and do something different, and kind of navigated towards the world of endurance sports. And I'm sure kind of Zach and Jim will agree to this. Once you kind of get involved in this type of sport, it can be quite addictive and quite rewarding. From the work that you put in, you get the rewards from it. It's different to team sports where it's not necessarily, you don't have to be the most talented or the most skilled to do well in this sport. If you're willing to put the work in, to follow a plan and put the time into it, you will get better, you will get fitter. And I really love the sport of triathlon because it's all inclusive. There's no age limits. There's no physical limits. Like it has people from all over the world, all ages, all sizes, all shapes, all backgrounds. It's really, really great community to be involved in, and that's one of the biggest things I love about it. And I suppose my passion from that side of it kind of grew into developing the coaching business and the studio, being able to share experiences and knowledge that I've learned and studied, and be able to help people achieve goals that they set for themselves. It's quite rewarding.
Amazing. It sounds like you're doing some really great work, and I can definitely hear the passion in your voice too. I'm curious. I mean, you say that endurance sports, it's not so much about the physical ability, and I'm just curious to hear you dig a little bit deeper into your approach to coaching for these kinds of endurance sports that do require quite a lot from the physical side.
Yeah, so in endurance sports, and particularly the longer the distance that you're training for, the longer the distance the event you're training for, definitely the psychological component of it, or the mental aspect comes into it hugely. That it's not the most physically talented that will do well in endurance sports, but it's those that have the mental grit and fortitude that can essentially, what you're trying to do is you're trying to embrace the suffering. Like, suffering is going to be there. Suffering is part of it. It's part of the process and the journey. And it's those who can embrace it and endure it the best and the longest that can kind of do well. And I think that's one side of the benefits of training and exercise itself. Is the physical component is great in terms of helping kind of good endorphins and helping you feel good after your exercise, but also it can be quite character building in terms of everyone has good days when they're exercising. They feel good. They go out, they have a good training session, they perform really well. That's easy. They're the easy days. But the days when you've got training planned and maybe you wake up and on one of those days where things don't go right from the start, you're not feeling good. You may go into work and it's crazy. Everyone, you're being asked to do everything, and things become out of hand. And then you've a training session to do later that day. It's those days that really built that mental tenacity. That if I can get through pulling myself together to get through this session, that you become stronger mentally getting through those tough days. That it makes the easy days feel even easier. So. It's definitely mind over matter a lot of the time with endurance sports, and with the two guys with Jim and Zach at the moment. Again, this is a pure mental battle with themselves getting through this.
Definitely. I think that, I mean, you touch on such relevant points there, and I think the one word that really pops to my mind with what you're saying is resilience. And maybe it would be interesting to hear what resilience. What you've learned about resilience in your work in coaching and endurance sports, and how can we take some of those ways of thinking and apply them in just general day-to-day life?
Yeah, so in terms of resilience, so I can kind of speak from my own personal experience from this. In the sport, like I compete myself, and I train and race myself, but over the past 2 years I've been dealing with injury, and it's been a struggle in terms of trying to get on top of an injury. And when you go from being able to do the things you love and do the things you enjoy doing on a daily basis, swimming, cycling, running, training, exercising, whatever it may be, and then when that's taken away from you, it's a big change, and it changes your perspective on life and things in general, where when you're fit, when you're healthy, you don't think twice about being able to go out and put your runners on and go running, or go to the gym and exercise. It can be very easy to take those things for granted. And it's not until they're taken away that you realize how grateful you can be to do that. In terms of resilience, kind of what I've learned over the past 2 years is that you will have good days, you will have bad days mentally. There's days where you feel it's never going to get better. I'm never going to get back on top of it. But you need that desire and that motivation from within to be able to keep going, to just have your goal, have your focus, have your target, and you need to just keep working towards that, knowing that it never goes in a straight trajectory. When you set yourself a goal or a target, it's never plain sailing that you go in a nice, smooth trajectory up towards that. There's going to be loop-de-loops. There's going to be zigzags. You're going to go forwards, backwards, sideways. But when you can stay focused on that end goal, you can get there if you're picking at something small, something little on a day-to-day basis, that you're constantly trying to move yourself that little bit forward towards that goal. So even if it takes, if it's 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, that it requires that day-to-day focus, that day-to-day resilience to keep going, get through the bad days, you'll get some good days. It's having a long-term approach to it is important, because everyone will have experiences and situations in their life where things feel like they're all falling to shit, or they're going to nothing's going right, and can start questioning themselves, questioning what they're doing. It's being able to understand that that's okay, that's normal. Everyone has those instances, and it's how you deal with them, and not keeping them to yourself. A really good way is being able to share that with someone, share how you're feeling, even if it's writing it down to yourself, putting it out, putting it in words, allows you to accept what's going on, and then just deal with it and to keep moving forwards. And I think a big part of being able to do that is accountability with someone or with something, that when you know there's someone looking over your shoulder, or there's someone there that you've told, okay, listen, I had this goal to get towards here, and now for whatever reason things aren't going according to plan. What are you going to do to adjust the plan? That the goal stays the same, but now the route that you take may need to change. So keeping it simple, it's every day. It's grinding it out every day, through the good days, through the bad days. Just you need to stick with it. Have a relentless attitude to achieving any targets that you have, regardless how big or small they are.
Yeah, and just to kind of to jump in here, I know that like Cillian has been that voice of reason for us, checking in with us. How are you guys doing? Good job on the last week. You've got a rest week now, a rest week there, and I think that's really made a huge difference to my training for sure. I mean, if I was doing this on my own, I would not be able to, keep the resolve, I think, as well as it is. And then obviously also partnering up with Jim. Cillian made us like a very personal plan and has linked us together, obviously with our different watts and running and heart rate zones to kind of partner it. But that's been a huge help with the training for sure.
I think
just thank you, Cillian.
just to add on there as well, what you mentioned there, like it's an everyday thing. And I think Zach and I think we speak for both of us. Normally when we went running, we went 2 or 3 times a week, and you ran in a high heart rate zone for an hour, and you were pushing it every single time. But with Cillian, we're sort of steadily building week on week, 10 minutes longer, a few watts higher, constantly building that engine, like incrementally gaining yourself. And I think there's a really nice quote that I just want to say. It's like, I think it's sort of accredited to Steve Jobs, but people overestimate what they can do in a year, but they underestimate what they can do in 10, with the compounded effect. And if I just see where we're coming from, like 4 months ago or 5 months ago, and the improvement we see by every day consistently, even if you don't feel like it, because you have good days and bad days, but having external accountability to do it and keep pushing forward, that is not only from a physical perspective has brought us here, and we're able to do this, although I must say it's getting quite tough at some points now, but it's also the mental aspect of just consistently pushing yourself, also if you don't feel like something, just to keep doing it, like take small steps. Thanks for that.
I think having the two of you to bounce off each other and keep each other motivated is definitely a big asset to have. That some days, Jim, you might be on fire and ready to rock. Zach might be needing that to be pulled along, or vice versa.
I love that. It's very true.
I wanted to say, Cillian, a little bit of competition. I love it how you said that I needed to motivate Zach. That was just for me for 1 second. I was feeling like, yes, Finally.
On the rare occasion, I'd say so, Jim. Maybe vice versa.
Yes.
I actually wanted to ask on that. I think it's so inspiring to see, to just be the third person here, like Cillian speaking about like his approach to coaching, and then you two speaking about like how much he has clearly inspired you and the actions you put in place to be able to train so effectively for something like this and your upcoming Ironman. And Cillian, I think just to put the ball back in your court, I'd wonder, from your perspective, what makes an effective coach, and what are some of those elements that we could all take on to be better people to those around us, whether it be friends, family, colleagues, whoever?
Yeah, I think definitely in terms of characteristics of a good coach, or the things I'd like to try and get across with people I work with is each individual is different. Each individual has their own goals, has their own targets, but also has their own intrinsic motivators. And some athletes will respond to some stimuluses, others won't. And it's being able to kind of find what works for people best. What do they actually want? So having a two-way relationship and having some feedback and input from the athlete is really important. That I like to say coaching is a relationship. It's not a dictatorship. That it's not me saying this is the plan, this is what you have to do. It's being able to say this is what I think is best for what you want to achieve, and getting their feedback and input to be able to make sure that they're on the same page, they understand what they're doing, and that they can trust in the process then to go about and doing the work. At the end of the day, the athletes have to do the work. So it's up to them to actually do the training. The coach is there to facilitate their needs as best as possible. So definitely communication and feedback is important. And also being able to know when to push them, or also when to pull them back in terms of when they're training to make progress in your training. You need to be consistent, and you need to have a long-term vision. It takes time and it takes patience, and it doesn't have to be overly complicated. But when you're smart with the approach that you take, when you can test, measure your training, retest, see what's gone well, what's not gone so well, and make the necessary adjustments. That's as simple as it can be. And I think the coach's job is to kind of do the heavy thinking in terms of the science and the numbers and that kind of stuff. It's important for the athletes to understand it as well, but essentially they need to know, this is what I'm doing this week, these are the reasons why, and then if I tick these off, I'm going to be moving those few steps towards my goals. And another important thing is having that support network around you, that if it is a training partner, or if it's your partner at home, or if it's your family, that having everyone involved or understanding what you're doing. Because say with Jim and Zach, when you're training for an Ironman, it's a big commitment. It takes a lot of time training, and maybe I don't say sacrifice, because these guys signed up for themselves. It's something they wanted to do, so I wouldn't classify it as a sacrifice. But it takes a lot of time out of your week. So it's important to have, so you need the discipline, and you need the support of the people around you, that you're trying not to be selfish, and that all you do is work and train, and you don't spend time with those around you. So having that balance is key. That as age group athletes, or as amateur athletes, which we are, it's at the end of the day, it's a hobby. It's not our full-time profession. So being able to have that balance is important, because that's what will make it sustainable in the long term. Whereas if you go all in and trying to do what the pros do, on top of a full-time job and a successful career and family or kids or anything else that you have, it's not the same. So treating each athlete individually and working together to create a plan that suits their needs and that will allow them to achieve their specific goals is really, really important.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's it's a cool way to hear you describe that. And a common theme that's come up today is connection. And you started off saying that, an effective plan is built on knowing your coachee's intrinsic motivators. And I think you can only really connect on someone's intrinsic motivators when you take the time and create the space to really get them to share why they want to do this, and then reframe, that mission on that why the whole time. You were saying, like, when you're going through those bad days, you need to continuously look in terms of, what am I focusing on right now, and just put all your energy there and not get tripped up on the fact that you don't want to get out of bed in the morning or whatever it might be.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you can get caught up on the actual day to day, and if you get up and today was a bad day, being able to step back and kind of have a look at the bigger picture, or the bigger perspective, that was one day over the past 4 months, that on the balance you're trending in a positive way, as opposed to pinpointing one day that just things didn't go well. It's also being able to be self-aware, to make a decision on those days where, say, you do wake up in the morning and you're still like you're wrecked, or you had a hard session yesterday. You wake up and you're feeling unwell, or you're feeling really, really tired, and the best thing for you that day might be just to take that rest day. There may be a session planned, but not being afraid to make the smart decision to leave your ego at the door, and just say, no, today's going to be a rest day. I'm going to recover and get back into it tomorrow. Not trying to be the hero and do every single session every single day just because you have to. I think that's really important as well.
Yeah, like almost like fighting a good fight in the arena doesn't mean being in the center of the arena the entire time. You have to manage your energy and strategically place your moves.
Exactly. Yeah, I like to say a simple kind of phrase is, you want to be fit and fresh for your race, as opposed to be fit and fatigued. So you'll have a lot of people that will do too much. They may be really, really fit. They put in a lot of hours, but when it comes to their A race, or the day they need to perform and execute, they've left their best performance in training because they just dug themselves into a hole. So it's being sensible with your approach, knowing that where do I want to peak and where do I want to perform best, and knowing that that's what matters most.
Yeah. I'm curious to hear maybe some of the ways in which either you or the people that you've coached have applied the discipline and the ways of thinking that they've learned through this endurance training in other areas of their life.
Yeah, so common themes or common associations that you find with the training is essentially improving their way of life. So triathlon is great because it's a sport that actually, not that it forces you, but it helps you change your lifestyle. Because you're swimming, you're cycling, you're running, you've got a busy schedule in terms of quite an active schedule. So to be able to do that well and do that effectively, it forces you, and it forces you to learn how to create a better lifestyle and a better environment that you live in on a daily basis. And that comes down to, say, like your nutrition, your nutrition habits, in terms of you start thinking more about what you're eating and how it affects your sleep, how it affects your training, how it affects your performance and recovery. You start thinking about your sleeping habits and your sleeping patterns. Am I getting enough sleep? Am I sacrificing my sleep? And then performance is declining, both in training or in a work setting. It definitely teaches you to become a lot better at time management and organizing your week, because if you know your week schedule in terms of work, that's non-negotiable. You're in there, you've got work to do, you've tasks you have to tick off, so that has to be done. But aside to that, now you've got training sessions that have been planned and need to be slotted into that week. So if you're limited on time, you really have to be, if I've got an hour to train today, I need to slot that hour in somewhere and get it done, because if I miss that slot, chances are I'm not going to get it done later on in the day. So there's definitely some skills and characteristics that you learn from being involved in that coaching environment and that training environment that actually make you a better person in general, because it's a healthier lifestyle. You can actually achieve quite a lot more. You can be quite a lot more productive in work then as well, because for everyone that exercises in general, it doesn't have to be triathlon. Particularly in the morning, I'm a big fan of getting things done in the morning as much as possible, because it sets you up for the day. Positive frame of mind. You come into work, you're buzzing. You're definitely going to be on top of your game, versus if you compare it to a day where, say, maybe you lie in and you get up last minute, you grab your clothes and you rush into work, you're not firing on all cylinders that day. You're groggy. It takes you a while to get going. So there's definitely factors that you bring into your day-to-day life that actually kind of help create that healthy environment.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, and Jim and I always compare notes in some of the books we read. So I know he also has been quite a fan of Simon Sinek, who always has the whole mantra, start with why. And
Yeah.
this is exactly it. And your why should be aligned to your intrinsic motivators. And kind of why I asked that question about coaching is I think about some of the people that I've considered to be great managers at work, as an example, are the ones that enable you to see, well, how does this work matter to me, and how can I bring that with me to work every day? Because it takes then less work from them as a manager, And I think what's been so inspiring from today is speaking to some of the people from Crisis Text Line, as an example. Their volunteers are there because they are intrinsically motivated to be there, to be driving the great purpose and cause of working and driving the field of mental health. So it's really great to just draw the parallels that you bring from, physical endurance and how the mental endurance plays such a big part of that. And then, obviously that's brought us all here together today.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think you knocked it on the head there in terms of knowing your why, and that goes across everything you do. If it's in the workplace, if it's in a charity organization, or if it's in your training, it's when you get up in the morning, like what's your focus for the day? Like what drives you? What drives you to get up out of bed, to do the things you do, be it work, be it training, helping others. Having that why is what will help you in those days where you're unsure, or you're feeling down, or you think just things aren't right. Being able to come back, think about that driver, and that's what will help kind of get you back on track. So I think I really like that that as well.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of always think about it in terms of, without knowing your why, you can get by, but it's kind of like you're living life with your eyes closed. You're going to stumble into things. Sometimes you'll stub your toe and get really mad, and these are the days where you have bad days. But if you are working with your why in mind, it's like you've turned the lights on, things are in color, you can navigate through life so much easier, and in a way that is so much more enjoyable.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. And I think it's really important that people understand that everyone does have those days, where the dark days where things get clouded and you're unsure of what you're doing, why you're doing it. That's normal. You may not hear of people doing it, and one of the downsides of social media and things like that is the majority of things that people post up there are of all the good days, all the wins, all the victories, whereas everyone that posts those has those down days as well. And I think it's important to share those, because everyone's human, everyone's normal, and that's part of normal life. So it's really important to be aware of that and know that it's okay. And the things we talked about, our why, our focuses, our goals, always having them to come back to, this is why I'm getting out of bed in the morning. This is why I'm on the bike climbing the same height as Mount Everest. These are the reasons why I'm doing these things. So I think that's just important to get that across.
Yeah, definitely. And knowing that if you don't know the why, then there's people like you or resources and tools that can help you find that why again, whether that be through your physical endurance or your mental health.
Yeah, and not being afraid to reach out. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'll probably just ask if you have any words of encouragement for Jim and Zach, as I know the next few hours are going to require them to tap into their resilience reserves.
Yeah, lads, just want to start picking it up. dropping a few watt bombs.
All right. So how many watts do you want to see, Cillian? Can you move the little thing in the middle?
550.
550. Okay, I'll give one. Can you get out of the screen for a sec?
Okay.
I'll try and do 550 for 1 second. All right.
A 10-second effort. 550.
Okay, everybody can watch in the top left that way. There we go.
Go on.
Up those quads.
Okay. Thanks for that, Cillian.
I'm definitely not going to ask
your
for the same thing. Cillian, we've got one question here from some of the people who have joined the live stream. And the question is, what's your take on personal gadgets for health and fitness? And then he gives examples: Fitbit, Oura Ring, etc.
Yeah, good question. Never used a Fitbit. So in terms of gadgets that I'd use and that we commonly use in triathlon is the likes of a GPS device like a Garmin or a Polar. In simple terms, the most valuable or the simplest method of tracking training and exercise is your heart rate, because heart rate is essentially going to tell you at any moment in time how hard you're physically working. It's a really, really important parameter to measure. And that same person mentioned the Oura Ring. So I haven't actually invested in an Oura Ring before, but I use an app called the HRV for Training app, and essentially similar to the Oura Ring, it measures your heart rate variability. And the great thing about that is it's like having a coach in your pocket in the morning time. That when we talk about our training and being consistent with training and knowing when to pull back or take a rest day, being able to track your heart rate variability is a really important tool for that, because it establishes a baseline of what your baseline HRV or heart rate variability is, and that becomes your normal. So when you know what your normal is, that, for example, if you climb Mount Everest today and then tomorrow morning you wake up and you check your HRV or your heart rate variability, chances are that number is going to be away off your baseline. And essentially what that's going to tell you is it's going to tell you your recovery is going to be, you're going to be still carrying quite a lot of fatigue, and chances are you're going to have to be sensible what you do the following day. So if you had training sessions scheduled and you woke up one morning and your HRV was off your baseline, it will tell you, like the HRV for Training app is great because it will tell you that, yeah, you may need to limit your intensity today, or you may need to actually take a rest day today. Whereas without these objective measures, we're only left with subjective feelings or subjective measures, and everyone has their own subjective measures, and they could be good or bad or indifferent. But if you wake up thinking, oh, I'm just tired, I just need to suck it up and do the session anyway, that could have a negative impact on the next day's performance and the rest of the week's training. Whereas with an objective measure, it takes away the decision-making process, and you know, okay, I need to take this rest day. If I want to get back into training for the rest of the week, I just need to be sensible today, ease back and get back into it. So big fan of HRV or the HRV for Training app. And then in terms of tracking training sessions, Garmin is kind of the brand that I'd use. And for any of the athletes that we work with, we work using Training Peaks as a platform for managing training sessions and managing all the data. So big into the numbers. You can make it as complicated as you want, but the biggest thing is understanding what you're measuring and what it means, and how to plan your training accordingly.
Amazing.
One question for you two guys is, what's the nicest thing you've eaten today?
Ooh. Can I say drink? Zach gave me a cup of coffee about 3 hours ago, and that was the most amazing thing I've drank all day. And food, I think the oats actually with berries.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
And what's the? Do you have any celebration plans when you finish?
Sleep.
No. Is there something you would recommend?
I thought you'd have a nice big juicy pizza get ready to be delivered when you finish.
That's a good idea.
We're gonna do that. We're gonna do that.
One ice cold beer. You'll probably get through like a few sips of it and pass out.
Yeah, the cheapest night out you'd ever had if you went.
Thanks, kid.
Awesome. We can carry on chatting. We're just waiting for Kiki to join in. I'm not too sure when she will be dialing in. So you're welcome to stay on and just carry on the conversation with Zach and Jim, or if you do need to go, that's also fine.
Oh yeah, no, hang on for another few minutes. I don't have to go just yet.
We've got another question in here. One of them is, what do you think the impact of COVID is going to be on the fitness industry? And I think he's talking about not the immediate, or maybe immediate and then long term. And you did mention in
Yeah.
the beginning how you've had to shift your business and pivot it into more online.
Yeah, it's good question, and it's hard to know. Say in terms of fitness industry and say like a studio setting or a gym setting, just the nature of being in that environment in terms of close proximity with people, exercising, breathing, sweating, in that type of environment, it's hard to see how soon that's going to be allowed to come back, and even when measures are put in place, how limited numbers will be in certain sized spaces. So it's definitely going to be affected, and how long it's going to be affected for it's hard to say. But on the flip side of that, and I think again it's something I've learned, and something it's always something I was interested in, but the situation has kind of forced me to try and speed up the process a little bit more in terms of bringing my own business online as much as possible. So in terms of how things have changed for me, so having a watt bike studio where we used to run classes where we 12, 13 bikes in the studio. Now what we're doing is we're running our classes online. So using platforms like Zoom, people riding on Zwift, things like that. We're still able to do what we were doing in the studio, and the benefits of online then as well is in the studio there's a cap of 13 people. Only 13 people could fit into a session, whereas online essentially there's not really a limit to how many people could log in, sign in. And the benefits that some of the clients have been saying is it's great because when they finish their online session, they can just hop off the bike, hop straight into the shower, and then they're at home ready for their dinner already. They don't have to get back into the car and commute home. So I think from that side of it, there's a lot to work on and improve. But then I think it's going to be quite challenging for a lot of the gyms, and particularly not some of the big massive franchises like the FlyFits and stuff, who would have maybe like the financial backing that they're not as under pressure as some of the other gym settings that would have taken a big hit. So it is hard to see what the long-term impact is going to be. Definitely over the next few months is going to be quite heavily affected.
And I think so Cillian, as well, there was somebody who asked for your sort of contact details. So I think, you've mentioned these amazing classes and maybe people want to somehow get involved. Can you just share like where people can contact you, and then we'll also post it on the YouTube live stream comments?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So my business is called What's Up Studio and Coaching. So we've got a Facebook page, What's Up Studio and Coaching. We have a website. We're in the middle of getting our website redone. But it's whatsupstudio.com, and also on Instagram as @whatsup.studio. So they're kind of the main things in terms of the business side of it, that if anyone wants to reach out, or particularly if anyone had questions or any of that kind of stuff, always feel free to drop me an email. Always happy to give some advice for anyone that wants to chat or has any questions on any certain topics. Always open to giving any help that I can.
Amazing.
It's actually quite interesting to think about how a lot of people that might have not gotten themselves physically to the gym or physically to go see a coach might actually reach out now, because the path to reach you is actually that much shorter. That's quite it's quite amazing to think that. Have you experienced that so far?
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I think the whole country is seeing a massive increase in people exercising, getting out. I think I saw a number that there was something like an extra 220,000 people out cycling over the past few months, because of it's the only form of exercise they could do to get outside with their kids, with their family. With my business as well, with the watt bikes, the frustrating thing for me was I just invested in 13 brand new watt bikes just at Christmas time, but when the COVID-19 situation struck, I was lucky enough to be able to rent the bikes out to people who wanted to use them. And essentially, if I had another 10 bikes to rent out, I would have been able to. And I remember delivering the bikes to the houses, and I'd give them the bike, and before I left, they'd be asking, "What else do you have? What else can we rent off you?" People were mad for trying to get pull-up bars for their house, getting kind of any bits of weight or gym equipment they could get. People that hadn't exercised in a long time, just because they knew they were going to be stuck at home, just they had to try and get something done. I think it's probably a positive thing for people's health. That I say there's a lot of people exercising now that mightn't have exercised as much in a long time.
Yeah, that's for sure. I know I missed the train when it came to buying. Zach, what is the brand of bike stand? I'm getting the word.
XS Plus, right? Flux.
Our home
train.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah, home
I
train
wanted to buy one, then I missed the train, and then now they all sold out for so long. So
yeah, very hard. It's like gold dust trying to get a turbo trainer at the moment.
Yeah.
I need to. I don't want to be rude, but I need to run to the toilet real bad. So I'm going to run quickly. Excuse me.
The coffee.
Yeah, the coffee got you.
Zach, question for you, Zach. What bike are you riding?
So I've got my Domane AL2.
Very good.
But I went on my first outdoor ride. I think it was about 6 weeks ago. I went with Jim and another friend of his, Tees. Quite advanced riders. I mean, Jim coming from the Netherlands, I think before they can walk, they can cycle a bike. But
only on the flats though.
I took my Domane with me, but I was like, okay, but what if I need to lock my bike? So I had my lock on my bike, and then I had a torch on it, and all sorts of stuff. So it wasn't very pleasant. And then I didn't pump my wheels properly. It was a bit of a nightmare.
The convenience of a turbo trainer where you can just hop on, do your session, hop off, and you're done.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's been amazing.
Yeah.
It's been amazing.
What turbo trainer are you on?
So Jim and I both have the same one. It's the TAC XS Flux.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's been
very good.
It's completely changed the way that we train.
Oh yeah.
Completely changed it.
And do you enjoy Zwift?
Yeah, I love Zwift. I mean, being able to do this today has been super fun. And then what we've sort of done is once a week on a Saturday, we set a calendar invite a bunch of friends, and then we just cycle together on Hangouts. Jim and I are usually the last men standing because Cillian puts in enough time for us on the bike to take up half of our morning. Yeah. But it's only good for us. So yeah, it's been amazing.
Maybe just quick side note, completely out of here. But regarding Kiki, I need to say I messed up with the time. She's it's an hour later, so she's probably arriving only at. What time is it now?
7:30. That's fine.
Sorry.
I just wanted to ask Cillian one more question. Considering you do triathlon training and you're over here in Dublin, you are in Dublin, right? Or are you in a different part of Ireland?
Yeah, no, I'm in Dublin, yeah.
Oh, okay. Where do you do your swimming training?
So I swim in the National Aquatic Centre, or I did swim in there until it closed down. So yeah, that's a great swimming pool there.
And any outdoor training?
Yeah, actually, the frustrating thing for me, so at the moment I don't live within 5 kilometers from the sea, so I can't get into the open water.
Yeah.
And the 2 weeks before the lockdown was announced, this is in March, and March is still quite early for getting into the open water, but I wanted to get in and just soak it up and embrace the cold. So I actually started getting into the sea 2 weeks before the lockdown, and I got in about 4 times, and I went from maybe 30 to 60 seconds for the first time in there, because it was probably less than 7 degrees Celsius.
Wow.
And gradually built that up to maybe 10 minutes. But I had just I ordered online for open water swimming. It's quite cold, so obviously we wear our wetsuits, but you can also buy neoprene gloves and neoprene socks, because your extremities get the worst of the cold, and when they freeze, you lose your dexterity, you lose the power in your hands, so your swimming technique falls away quite quickly. So I ordered it online, and they arrived on the Friday before the lockdown was announced. So I was like, brilliant, I'm going to go for a decent swim on the Saturday morning, try and stay in there longer. And then that Friday evening was when the lockdown was announced. So I haven't been able to swim since. So it's been, I don't know how many weeks now where we've been out of the water, but most people are in the same boat. So it's actually something I'm really looking forward to, is getting back into swimming.
Yeah. I was actually saying to Zach earlier this week that we need to get down to the sea when we can, because we did the Glendalough Lake swim last year, so we both bought wetsuits for that. You must ask Zach to send you the funniest video we have of him after the swim. And he was just shaking from the cold. I think his coffee was spilling out everywhere.
Very good.
Really bad.
You swam it yourself, Kristin?
Yes, yeah.
And she beat Texas! She beat him!
She was first out the water, power swimmer right here. and Cillian, just a bit of background for Kristin as well. So she used to be a cycling instructor, so she was giving us some tips.
Okay.
So you've got a power sportswoman in front of you as well.
So I've got one question. It was in the chat from Jose. He asked, who has the highest chance of winning in an Olympic distance triathlon? The best swimmer, the best cyclist, or the best runner?
Ooh.
Who has the best chance?
Yeah.
Olympic distance.
Definitely not the best runner. So you have to be a good swimmer over Olympic distance. If you come out of the water a minute or 2 minutes behind, that's your race over. You're not going to be able to catch it up on the bike. So it'd be definitely between the swimmer and the biker who'd be able to take it.
Jose's not going to like that one. He's a big runner.
Right. Then there was one more question maybe, and that's a friend of us who we bike with on this Saturday mornings, Eric Pretorius. He asked Cillian, sub 11 hour full Ironman, ... That's ambitious, Eric. Is your money on Zach or Jim?
Oh.
Sub 11, is it on Zach or Jim? What about both of them?
I think that's the right answer.
That is a politically
That
correct
is the
answer.
politically correct answer. You can just say Zach, it's okay.
Big. It'd be interesting to see obviously what happens kind of race wise over the coming months. Like at least things are opening up a bit more, which is good. So it's just trying to see, like there's no definite yes or no so far, but fingers crossed that some racing will get back going again soon.
And I think that must be quite a big role that you're having to play as a coach in terms of, keeping the motivation up when that end goal is kind of floating around and when no one really knows, what the date of those races could be.
Yeah, definitely so. And because what you find is, particularly when in the first week or so when things like this happened, was people either went one way or the other, that their motivation dropped because maybe some of the races, say in May, were obviously cancelled first. End of April, start of May, the races were cancelled. So they said, right, that's my race, it's gone. So what am I going to do, or what am I going to train for? So for those people, essentially, it's the way to think about it is that the journey and the process stays the same. Why do you train? Why are you doing your training? You're training to improve yourself as an athlete. You're trying to become a better swimmer, cyclist, and runner. It doesn't matter if the race was this year, if it's Ironman Qashqai this year. If that goalpost changes, it's not the end of the world. Essentially, it means you have more time to become a better athlete. So being able to change that focus and to change the goals. So it might need to create some short-term goals for yourself. And those short-term goals could be more specific, that, okay, my half Ironman that was due to be in May or June, it's gone. But now is the time to work on areas that I mightn't have been able to work on when I was in full triathlon training. So maybe introducing some core work or some strength and conditioning work to become a more well-rounded athlete. Or some people have decided to focus on, say, maybe, okay, I'm going to become, maybe try and target my 5K time. We see a lot of people doing the 5K runs. So it's always having those goals and those targets. Yes, keep that big picture, the A goal, the Ironman race in the background. The date will change, but what are the things that you're still going to work on that when you do get to that A race, you're going to be better than you are today? So it's always having that focus, having those goals, breaking them down into shorter term goals, keep on track.
Yeah, I think like the opportunity that I see in this, it's like resilience training for your ego. Like as long as you can't now pin your ego to, hey, I'm doing Ironman. It has to be more on the process, as you said, which I mean, I just think that that's inspiring to think about in the long run. If more athletes are working on that ego piece now, when the races come back, they don't have that draining their energy anymore. They can just focus on the process and get so much more from it as a result.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. And I think one of the approaches that I took with my athletes and even with Jim and Zach early on when the coronavirus kind of struck was scaling back in terms of when you're training for a specific event, you've got a periodic approach to that event in terms of the training is periodized, building up to peak for that event. When the coronavirus struck, things were put on hold temporarily. But also in terms of when you're training hard and exercising hard, your immune system is suppressed. So there's a lot of kind of caution around that we're not trying to leave ourselves vulnerable to getting sick or picking up any illnesses. So essentially we scale it back a little bit and continue to focus on building that aerobic engine, that aerobic conditioning side of things. That if we look at an Ironman or a triathlon, be it a sprint or an Ironman or even further, it's an endurance sport, it's an aerobic sport. So highlighting the importance of doing your zone 1, your zone 2, your easy aerobic training is so important. And that's, as you said, that's where you leave the ego at the door, that not every session isn't a smash fest, that you're not trying to go out and trying to do big miles, big hard sessions, big numbers. Being able to understand the process is really important.
Yeah, that's definitely correct. Awesome. Well, we've just got Kiki joining us now, so I'll just say thanks so much, Cillian. It's been really interesting chatting to you, and just like making some of the parallels between the different conversations we've had from the coaches that are more in the mental health space and you that's more in the physical space. It's been really interesting. So thanks for sharing your insights and your passion with us.
No, thanks for having me on. It's great to chat and keep it going, guys.
Thanks,
all the way to the finish.
Really
no quitting.
Thanks, Cillian. We'll keep pushing forward.
See you later.